The alien princess cursed to fade. Until a human changed everything. In a world where dying stars whisper secrets, and broken bloodlines hide ancient sins, one forgotten princess, and one lost human, must defy the fate written into their very DNA. Today, journey with us across Aurevia, where twilight oceans shimmer like glass and the ruins of an empire tremble at the touch of forbidden love. Will they rewrite the destiny that tried to erase them? Or will the darkness that created them claim their future too? Stay with us until the end, and as you listen, tell us. Would you risk everything for a love the universe itself tried to destroy? Your thoughts, your dreams, your hopes, we want to hear them in the comments below. Now, let's begin. Aurevia glowed under a violet sky, its twin moons hanging like pale eyes above an endless ocean of glass. Not water. Not solid. Something in between. The surface shimmered, catching every hue of twilight, rippling with the breath of a planet that felt old, wounded, tired. Out there, across the mirrored plains, ruins drifted, ancient citadels with broken spires and floating cities that creaked like ghost ships in slow orbit. Gravity pulsed strangely on this world. Time, too. Some said Aurevia existed halfway between a dream and a memory. And from above, the dream was shattered. A fire tore through the sky. Rei Solis' survey ship, battered and dying, screaming toward the horizon in a spiral of smoke and fractured metal. It crashed just beyond the ridge of whispering towers, where no one dared to live. The ship didn't explode. It sank slowly into the soft glass ocean like a ship descending into milk. Rei woke to silence. Blood in his mouth. Earth dust in his clothes. Earth was gone. The colony ship was gone. He was alone. And then came the sound of armor. Figures emerged from the haze, tall, robed knights of dark silver, with opalescent skin and eyes like bioluminescent pearls. They spoke in a tongue older than stars, their voices like wind brushing over bone. They did not ask his name. They bound his hands in shimmering bands and led him through an archway of thorns and light, toward the high hall of ether glass. The ruling council waited, a crescent of cold faces beneath the dome of starlight. They sat upon chairs shaped like living coral, their breath visible in the chilled air. Behind them, a throne of black stone pulsed with veins of gold empty. The emperor did not attend trials for animals. Human, one of the robed voices spat. Verdict, trespass. Contamination. Verdict, death. But then movement. From the shadows at the edge of the hall, a soft voice. Soft, and broken. I will take him. Heads turned. A flicker of annoyance. Then silence. She stepped into view like a memory forgotten, barefoot on cold glass, silver hair falling across her shoulder like strands of moonlight. No crown. No guards. No symbols of power. Maelis. The Duskborn. The cursed one speaks, someone whispered. She did not raise her voice. She simply pointed. Give him to me? Laughter echoed, cruel and sharp. To the infertile ghost? Fine. As servant for your dead gardens. They shoved Rei forward. She reached for his wrist, and her hand was cold, colder than the air, but her grip was gentle. She did not meet his eyes. Come, she said quietly. And he did. The lighthouse stood at the edge of the world, where the glass ocean met the sky. It was older than the empire, older than memory. Covered in vines that no longer bloomed. Its tower leaned westward, always toward sunset, as if longing to fall. This was where Maelis lived. Not ruled. Not governed. Existed. She led Rei through its broken halls without speaking. Walls hummed with forgotten energy. Doors that opened only when touched by certain blood. The air smelled of dry roots and burnt rain. Her chamber was small, sparse. No gold. No servants. Only dying plants, alien flora that drooped toward the floor, their leaves brittle and translucent like bone paper. She handed him food, strange, soft fruits, glowing faintly. She sat across from him but did not eat. She watched. Her English was fractured, echoing phrases lifted from ancient human broadcasts, radio waves that had drifted across stars. "You are not dead," she said one morning, as if it surprised her. Rei's voice was hoarse. "Neither are you." They rarely spoke. But slowly, rituals emerged. Together, they tended to the garden's patches of bioluminescent soil that pulsed like heartbeats. The plants responded to touch, to music, to hope. Most of them were withering. Rei studied them in silence, touching the leaves with care. He had seen things like this on Earth, before the fall. Before the oceans boiled and the soil turned against them. One night, they stood on the broken balcony as the nebulae shimmered overhead like bruises across the sky. "I think this planet is sad," Rei murmured. Maelis said nothing. But she stood closer than usual. She showed him the old greenhouse long abandoned. Its roof cracked, vines crawling up the walls like hands trying to escape. Inside, plants dreamed of spring but never woke. Maelis knelt before a blossom that never bloomed. "I try," she said, touching it gently. "But they die anyway?" Rei said beside her. "Maybe they are waiting for something." She looked at him. And for the first time, didn't look away. It was then Rei understood. She was not his captor. She was just trapped. More than him. Deeper than him. Not in chains, but in expectations, in silence, in centuries of being told she was a mistake. And somehow, this broken garden, this ruined tower, this half-dead world, was the only place either of them had ever felt seen. Rain came to Aurevia not as water, but as light threads of violet energy drifting down from the upper atmosphere, scattering across the lighthouse roof like falling stars. It made no sound, but it made the air hum. That night, Maelis took Rei somewhere she hadn't shown anyone in years. Beneath the lighthouse, hidden behind a rusted iris door sealed by ancient biotech, lay the roots of the tower, a labyrinth of forgotten halls and humming machines, buried under coral stone and silence. She touched her hand to a panel. It read her blood, then sighed open with a low tone like a dying whale. "This is the heart," she said softly. It was not a lab, not exactly. It was part temple, part data vault, part graveyard of knowledge. Floating scrolls hovered mid-air. Holographic plants spun slowly in tanks of violet mist. Vines coiled through old glass computers, as if trying to reclaim them. Symbols glowed along the walls, some alien, some oddly human. Rei stared, stunned. "You built all this?" She shook her head. "No, I remembered it. Piece by piece. My mother brought me here once, before they took her away." She led him to the center, an altar covered in devices, scanning rings, bioreaders, fractured DNA coils suspended in crystalline amber. "This is what I am," she whispered. "What they say is broken." She sat. Pulled a small glass vial from her robe. Inside swirled a dark gold liquid, her blood. She placed it into the reader. Light spun. The display hovered midair, her genome, rendered in elegant spirals of color and light. "To them, it is a curse," she said. "A gene tied to the dying star, a myth. They said I would end the bloodline. No children. No power. Just silence. Rei stepped closer. His eyes traced the code. It wasn't just alien, it was structured, almost mechanical. Too structured. There, he said, pointing. A small flicker in the strand lock. Artificial. Cauterized code. Maelis leaned in. Her breath caught. You see it. He nodded slowly. It's not a mutation. It's a blocker. This wasn't nature. Someone designed it. She stared at the code as if seeing her soul for the first time. I was made to be barren. No, Rei said. You were modified to be? A silence followed that felt heavier than any shout. Maelis backed away from the display, her hands trembling. My bloodline did this. Why would they? Rei asked gently. She looked up at the ceiling, at the slowly turning image of a dying star. Because when I was born, the oracles said my light would change the world. My father feared change more than death. After that night, the tower changed. Rei and Maelis spent every waking hour in the root lab. The air buzzed with energy, with hope, with the risk of more. He taught her how human gene locks were broken back on Earth: CRISPR, adaptive viral threads, bioluminal markers. She showed him the living tech of Aurevia plants that remember trauma, fungi that could rewrite memories, moss that responded to heartbeat patterns. They built hybrid tools from both worlds. There were failures, cells collapsing under pressure, test samples combusting into ash, but they kept going. They worked without sleep, without hunger. Something deeper drove them now. Not just the desire to cure her, but the desire to rewrite fate. And as they worked, they changed. Maelis began to laugh, soft, shy, unexpected. Rei began to speak her language, not fluently, but tenderly. He asked her about her favorite flower. She didn't have one. They tried to grow one together. Late one night, while cross-referencing blood markers, she touched his hand. You don't look at me like they do, she said. Like I'm already a ghost. He held her gaze. You're the most alive thing I've ever seen. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But something passed between them unspoken. A pact. A promise. The rain of light came again, twice in one cycle, an omen not seen in a generation. Maelis stood beneath it on the tower balcony, letting the threads of energy soak into her skin. She didn't shiver anymore. The light no longer stung. It felt like something was waking up inside her. Down in the lab, Rei calibrated the final sequence of their hybrid nanoseed. It pulsed a soft green in its crystalline capsule, alive, ready, dangerous. A mixture of Earth's chaotic brilliance and Aurevia's organic elegance. A living lockpick. They were almost ready. But someone was already watching. Far above, in the high spire of council, a pair of slit-pupiled eyes narrowed. Lady Saren, the High Inquisitor and voice of the royal bloodline, had received a whisper from one of her inner spies. The Duskborn had begun to glow. She's reactivating, Saren murmured to the gathered council. The anomaly we silenced. A chorus of uneasy shifting followed. She's supposed to be inert, hissed a noble. What if? What if she succeeds? Saren's voice cut across them all. What if the failed seed you cast into exile begins to bloom? A shadow moved behind her, a masked figure, cloaked in liquid darkness. The assassin said nothing. They never did. Back in the lighthouse, Maelis sat cross-legged in the center of the lab. The injector was in her hand now. The nanoseed danced inside it, spinning gently like a heartbeat. Rei knelt in front of her. "You don't have to do this," he said, though his voice betrayed his own hope. "I do," she replied. Her eyes were calm, focused. "Because I want to live, all of me." She placed the injector against her own skin. A faint click. A second of silence. Then she screamed. Not from pain but from awakening. Her body arched back as radiant gold veins lit up across her skin, pulsing like circuits in overload. Her hair lifted, glowing silver. The ground trembled. Vines in the lap surged toward her, blooming violently as if drawn to her heartbeat. Rei reached for her but couldn't touch her. The energy burned the air around her. And then, in a flash of bioluminescence, it stopped. Maelis collapsed. Rei caught her. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing brighter than any star in the Aurevian sky. "I feel," she whispered, breathless. "I feel everything." They came at midnight. 3 shadows, cloaked in silence, moved through the outer gardens of the lighthouse, footsteps as light as mist, blades sheathed in bioelectric current. They carried no names. Only a mission. And the anomaly. Eliminate the human. Rei didn't hear them until the door creaked. He looked up from Maelis' side. She was still recovering, body glowing faintly, breath shallow. The first blade flew spinning silver. Rei ducked, barely metal, slicing a strand of hair as it embedded into the wall behind him. His instincts kicked in. He grabbed a metal rod from the table. No training. No armor. Just fear. And love. The first assassin lunged. Rei blocked the blow with a rod. It shattered instantly. Pain shot through his arm. He staggered back. But before the second strike could land, a burst of golden energy exploded from behind him. Maelis stood, trembling, eyes wild with light. Her hands were raised and the air around them shimmered. "Leave him," she said, her voice deeper, layered. The assassin hesitated, but too late. The shockwave blasted them backward, slamming 2 into the far wall. The third rose faster and darted for her. This time, Rei didn't hesitate. He tackled the attacker, taking a deep slice across his ribs. Blood ran hot and fast. He didn't stop. They fell together. The blade was raised again and then a sound filled the tower. A gunshot. The third assassin fell. And behind them stood a silhouette. Long coat. Long hair. A weapon still smoking in her hand. Lady Saren's niece. Maelis' cousin. The sharp-tongued noble once sworn to loyalty. "Do not mistake this for mercy," she spat. "If I didn't need you alive, you'd both be ash. But this was a mistake. The council will burn for it." She disappeared into the mist before they could speak. Rei collapsed. Blood staining his side. Maelis caught him this time. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," he whispered. "We're fine." But outside, the wind carried whispers. Of a princess who could not die. Of a human who bled for a world not his own. Of light returning to the tower. Their love was never meant to exist. Their hope was never meant to survive. Yet under the twin moons of Aurevia, in the ruins of everything old and broken, they chose each other, and in doing so, they planted the first seed of a future the stars could no longer deny. If this story moved you, if it made you dream, if it made you wonder what you would fight for, share your thoughts below. What part touched you the most? Which moment stayed with you? Your voice is part of this journey now. And if you want more stories where love breaks the chains of fate, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay close. Our next story is already waiting among the stars.